What's going on? Another episode of Life Distilled. I'm Brian. I'm here at Young Yonder Spirits in Hillsburg, California. And I'm here with Josh, Sarah, and Shane. I don't know. I was having a hard time remembering you guys' names. But
That's okay.
No,
man.
I got
A
it.
lot of us.
I got
It's
it.
all right.
Cool. All right. Well, yeah, let's go through. And Josh, introduce yourself and explain what you do here. And we'll just go down the line.
Absolutely. So I'm Josh Opatz, my wife Sarah Opatz, and our younger brother Shane Harlan here. We co-founded and operate Young Yonder Spirits. So we started the company back in 2013 in Cloverdale, which is about 15 minutes north of Hillsburg in northern Sonoma County. When we started, Sarah and I were working in the city, and we were doing the daily grind in our corporate careers. So higher education, work, just everything you do when you live in the big city. And about, I would say halfway through, probably into our late 20s, we started to look at how we can do something in beverage alcohol that's entrepreneurial. We looked at beer, wine, and distilled spirits and tinkered with all three, and found distilled spirits to be fascinating and challenging and interesting. So we eased into the first location up in Cloverdale. We were doing nights and weekends while still living in the city, and building recipes, getting the licensing, all the equipment, all that jazz, and really just taking it brick by brick to build the little empire we have today.
Yeah, so Josh does a lot of the distilling and the taxes, the legalities, all that. But we decided to co-found the distillery mainly because between us two in the beginning, we had a lot of the traits to kind of help build this between Josh's background and beverage alcohol, and then I was a graphic designer. So I used to work in the city for ad agencies as well as Gap Inc. doing graphic design, so it's just natural kind of progression to do the branding for our company and all the labels and everything. So, and then we brought on Shane.
Yeah, and then so in 2017, so after we developed a couple of the products that we put into market, there was a law, in 2016 there was a law change, and that was AB 1295, which is the craft distiller's license. That basically allowed us to become from doing wholesale only to have the ability to operate a tasting room in our manufacturing facility or a distillery. And so when that triggered, we started looking for another spot in Sonoma County that would garnish a little bit more foot traffic and also allow us to build, I think, a better functioning distillery for tastings and tours, and also expanded manufacturing. And so we found this spot in Hillsburg and shut down the distillery, basically started again, rebuilt this place. And around that time, we talked to Shane, my younger brother, about joining us. So he came on, and he's now actually taken over all the distilling operations. So I get to do more of the stuff that kind of falls by the wayside when you're a startup, which is all the admin, purchasing, accounting, all that jazz.
Cool.
Don't forget janitorial services, bro.
Janitorial services is high up on my list on a regular basis.
Right.
So
Bathroom
Cool.
cleaning.
So Shane, you're like the man with the plan now. You've kind of taken over a lot of the distilling.
Yeah, so, well, I can't really take credit for any of the recipes that Josh and Sarah created. My involvement at that point was like, yeah, tastes good, dude. Keep it up. So, I mean,
He was a good taste tester.
yeah, so, but yeah, as far as the day-to-day distilling and fermentation and mash days, I sort of take the lead in that regard and basically keep the place looking clean.
Very cool. Okay, so your lineup of spirits. You have, you have a flavored vodka, a normal vodka, or I guess, neutral
Classic,
spirit.
yeah.
Classic vodka.
Yeah.
Then you have a rye whiskey and
a rye
It's a
bourbon.
bourbon.
rye
just to be
bourbon.
specific. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Cool. We'll go back to that in a second. Cool. And then your Hobbs gin, and then the Absinthe. That's like the newest edition, right?
Yeah, so we basically, the way that we've structured our company is we're Young Yonder Spirits, but we're a house of brands.
Right.
So we've chosen the path of creating unique brand identities for each of the products.
Very cool.
So as we talk through each of the spirits, I'm happy to also shed a little light on the stories behind the names and
Okay.
Maybe describe for the audience what we're looking at here for those who can't see it.
And the reason why
Absolutely.
we decided to go that route was primarily because vodka is so different than bourbon.
Right.
Bourbon is so different than absinthe. Absinthe is so different than gin. And our goal was really to give every spirit a story that resonated with, the history of the spirit or, kind of its own identity.
When you set out to open the distillery, what spirit did you really want to make? Because some people are like, it's all about rum for me. Oh, I can't wait to make the perfect gin. Is it whiskey? Is it absinthe the one you really chose to do? Or?
Yeah, I would say that when we set out on the journey, we were gin fanatics, and that's the one we spent. We spent time on everything. We did a year and a half to do the vodka, a year and a half to do the gin, just in terms of recipe development. But we were really particular about the gin, with gin being such a diverse category in terms of the different styles and flavors that are available. So when we set out, I don't know that we had one in mind. We did want to have a balanced portfolio, so we wanted to be able to have people come into our facility or go out into the marketplace and have a little bit of something for everybody. So that's, I think, the reason why we have a diverse portfolio, including clear and colored spirits. And so that was, for me, always the vision was to be a company with more than one specialty, like just taking the time, doing a lot of experiments and research, and putting a portfolio out that would allow for us to, talk to a lot of different types of people, because you have your vodka people, you have your gin people,
right.
You have your whiskey people, and we want to be able to interface with all those people and have an experience with them and make sure that they can enjoy the different products that we offer.
The one that actually was a surprise to us that we didn't plan on doing was our fresh lime vodka. We did not want to do flavored vodkas. We knew we were going to do a standard vodka because we actually use it as the base of all of our other spirits except for the bourbon. But we did not want to do flavored vodkas. The cotton candies, all those have kind of ruined
Birthday
it.
cake or wedding cake.
Exactly, exactly. But we are one of those people that we like Moscow mules, and we were having some friends come up from San Francisco and wanted to shorten the process of making those. So we infused some of our Armont vodka with lime, and we would have people come into the tasting room and we just pour it for them as like a, hey, here's what we're working on, what do you think? And it was, everyone loved it.
Right.
So we made a small batch and sold out, made a bigger batch, sold out. And that one's kind of been a surprise for us because, again, we didn't go into this with a plan of flavored vodkas, but a lot of time the market just tells you what it wants.
Yeah,
so
no,
you gotta
exactly.
follow it.
Can we taste that?
Absolutely.
Okay, yeah. I mean, I don't want to skip over the classic
well.
vodka because I have had it before and it is fantastic. It is a great vodka. But I'm really excited because the spirit almost looks cloudy for those of you who are listening.
Yeah, so
and that's what I'm kind of excited about.
So it's so the way we make the fresh lime, the Young Yonder Distiller Series fresh lime vodka, is it basically starts in track as the classic vodka. So we're distilling neutral, basically multiple distillations. And the last distillation, we cut up a bunch of fresh Persian limes. We do a light maceration, so we expose some of the oils out of the skin, some of the juice. We throw actually the whole fruit, the lightly macerated fruit, into the still, and then we cook all the limes with our Armont vodka in that sixth distillation, sorry. And then, so all the flavor and aroma that comes across is from just the lime flavor that's being volatilized during distillation. And when we're distilling, you got to remember that we're distilling around 160 proof for this run for this vodka. And then when we're proofing it down, we proof it down to 70 proof, and in the process of adding filtered water back to it, some of those oils from the lime coming over during distillation come out of solution, and that's where your cloud is. It's very similar to what you might see in absinthe, but with bleaching, exactly.
Dilution, yeah. This smells like a slice of lime.
Yeah.
It really does smell like a slice of lime. I've never experienced that. You usually get like a little bit of artificial flavors happening and whatnot,
It's
but this is
100%
no artificial
flavor.
flavors.
Yeah, we
and
get
nothing that we make has anything.
It smells amazing in here when we do the lime. It's really
Yeah.
fun. We love it when people kind of come in because it smells like a lime citrus factory in here. Because every time we press those limes, you just get so much fresh juice, and it's shocking just in the distillation process on how much flavor really carries over
Yeah.
And you get it all just in a sip, and
No, that is
it's easy drinking.
It is.
The number one thing people say when they come into our tasting room and taste this, and without a doubt, everyone says it. It's, oh, this is dangerous. What everyone says, and it is.
It,
I mean,
it is. It's really
it goes
easy
down.
drinking, and like you said with the oils, and it's very almost like viscous. It's
Yeah.
very
That's
it's
a
very
nice way to describe
creamy,
it.
very yeah. That has a great mouthfeel. I could drink
Thank you.
that straight all day. Cool. Okay. Well, I want to get into you guys' stories a little more. So, Shane, talk about your background. Like, what else did you do? And I know you're Josh's brother, correct?
Yeah.
Cool.
Yep.
So Josh's brother. Then, so you were working in wineries, and then I guess, I mean, yeah, work with the family. Why not? I mean, I wish my sister would come and hang out at my photography studio, but I mean, what else? What made you want to change and everything? Let's hear your story a little bit. Your background.
Yeah, so I went to Fresno State and studied enology and chemistry.
Okay.
And so my initial plan was just the wine path, winemaking. And you know, I really enjoyed. I worked in the wine industry for about 5 years. Yeah, really enjoyed it, and I just wasn't as passionate about it. I guess just like not being able to work, you know, for myself or for my family.
Right.
And so, yeah, I was really excited when Josh and Sarah decided to do a distillery. I was joking around with Josh a while ago. I was like, dude, I'm glad you went into booze, because if you were starting like an accounting firm or something, I would not be involved. So yeah, so a lot of the skills that I learned carry over, you know, just, you know, fermentation and yeah, it just, distillation just takes it one step further.
Absolutely.
And yeah, just enjoy making booze.
Right.
Yeah.
No, it's one thing. There's so much wine around here, and it's one of those things. I don't know. I grew up here, so you know, it's okay. You don't think anything of it. How like the wine industry and how like really how cool it is around here. This is like a fantastic little pocket of the States. But then I moved away, you know, traveled, did all this other stuff, then came back, and I'm like, now I'm old enough where I can appreciate it. And it's like, okay, the wine's cool, but I mean, there's great craft beer as well, and the distillery is just like, the distillery scene is really taking off, and that's I think that's going to be the future. People are going to start going to school for winemaking, but they're going to really start changing. They're going to start changing paths like you did.
Definitely.
And I can definitely relate to your story, because I grew up here as well. I went to Hillsburg High School.
Oh, really?
And then,
Cool.
yeah, so then
That's local. That's awesome.
Yeah, so then I went to Santa Barbara for undergrad.
Okay.
And you know, when you grow up in a small town, your first goal when you're a teenager is to get out of the small town and like go somewhere else.
Take
right?
off. Yeah.
And so did my tour of California, so Santa Barbara for school, and then lived in San Diego, kind of in my interim before wanting to start a real job, but not fully grow up yet. And then moved to San Francisco and you know, worked in finance, which is sort of tying back to Shane's joke about starting an accounting firm. Actually, I was really into accounting when I was in college. And so after, we again working in the city, I met Sarah at that time when we were both living in San Francisco, and we both went to grad school and just like again grinding in the corporate track, and just even though we were successful in our respective careers, just not fulfilled. And like there's something that, you know, it's just at least for me, I don't want to speak for you, Sarah, if that's overstepping my boundaries.
I think we hit it off really well, just because our underlying core personalities were entrepreneurs. And
Awesome.
he had, by the time I met him, I think you had like 5 different business ideas and had actually started them. I had a greeting card company, you know, was starting like a women's outdoor clothing line I wanted to do, and we just knew that we are going to start a business together, and it just has all worked very well. But you know, he brought me up to Hillsburg one time when we first started dating. I was like, why don't you move back here? Like this place is amazing.
Yeah.
Like you said, it's a pocket of just richness with the culinary scene and the spirits, you know, taking off, and everybody's doing amazing things here. So it wasn't.
No, it's Hillsburg's cool. It's changed. I've been coming up here since the 80s. I did not go to Hillsburg High. I went to Santa Rosa High.
Okay.
But yeah, it's funny because now we're like Dry Creek Kitchen is in Hotel Hillsburg. That used to be like
Yeah.
a soccer field. you
Yeah.
know? And I had to do community service. That's another story.
Well, yeah.
But I worked there and I had
Let's
to
get
like
into your story.
My-
the Christmas
yeah,
tree
yeah.
lot and stuff.
My old standing joke for Hillsburgers, when I grew up, Western Boot was like the fine dining establishment of the town. Like the no
Western
Michelin
Boot.
stars.
What's the pizza place
Exactly.
you guys
No,
always
no,
used to-
nothing. It was Round Table.
A round table.
Round Table.
Lots
Yep.
of family
And if you're
stories
lucky,
at
Western
round
Boot,
table.
like a little
Yeah.
hamburger and a Coke, and you'd be, you know,
Yeah.
a night on the
So-
town. And now it's, you know, it's 12 course
Yep.
prefix, and
Exactly.
the wine
Michelin
scene
stars,
is totally
Lamborghinis
exploded.
driving down
Yeah.
the street.
Yeah.
It's hilarious.
I kind of wish I saw Hillsburg back in the day just to
Yeah.
appreciate how far it's
Yeah, well,
And
I
like-
mean, the way I understand it, it's very much like it was like a biker town.
Yeah,
like
sounds
biker
like it.
gangs, like Hell's
Yeah.
Angels used to go up and down like Growing Pot and Mendocino, and they'd stop here and stuff like that. And
Yeah.
Hopland too. Hopland, I know, is like still kind of has some of that edginess about it.
But Hopland then
Hopland's
has
evolving too, man.
new
You'd be
places
surprised.
like
Hopland is-
Golden Pig.
Yeah,
and
yeah.
they're, and
No,
they're doing
definitely.
amazing stuff there.
Exactly.
And so it's really interesting, you know, not being from here.
Right.
I still see these little towns in Cloverdale. You know, we still
Yeah.
live a little bit north of Cloverdale up in the woods, but you know, you still see these towns that still have a small town feel, but then, you know, Sonoma is so sought after to live
Yeah.
at and start businesses that,
Yep.
you know, these new high-end restaurants are coming in, and
Oh, it's very
it's
cool.
fun. Fun to
Excellent.
see. It's a great spot to be for a business.
Yeah. Okay, well, let's try. Let's move to the gin, if that's okay.
Sure.
Yeah.
Because
Yeah.
this is what you guys got into distilling for.
This is it, man.
This is it. This is the jam.
This is
So-
one of our.
We'll just pour over, so just, you know, we'll do the best we can here. So there's no lime in this product, but you may have a little residual in your glass.
No,
so.
I rinsed my glass out.
Yeah,
Oh,
you
you're a pro, man.
Yeah.
All right,
Should
all
get us.
right.
Dude, yes.
Sorry, take it all back.
I got it, especially when when I taste that absinthe. Like I said.
Yeah,
Yeah.
thank you for
Huge
rinsing,
fan.
man. I'm usually a stickler about that. So the gin is called our Hobbs Gin. It's an acronym for Harbor of Broken Souls, and it's an homage to gin's
Okay.
naval history. So in
Okay.
our original plan was to do a Navy strength gin, which Navy strength comes from gin's history with the Royal Navy, so England's Navy, and keeping gin on their naval ships
Yes.
and delivering as part of daily provisions. So in order to qualify to carry gin on ships, you had to meet the Navy strength proof minimum, which is 114 proof,
Got it.
57%. And the reason that's important is because that's the proof or the percentage in which alcohol becomes flammable.
Right.
And so
Oh, okay.
with alcohol being
That's
stored
cool.
with gunpowder, which is traditionally
Yeah.
like they had one storage bay, which
Yeah.
they had artillery stuff, as well as all their alcohol and food. You didn't want the gin to spill into the gunpowder and disarm your ship.
That's
so
awesome.
so basically became
So
why
it-
Navy strength exists
Right.
as a category. We actually took ours down to 100 proof, so we're
Okay.
right in between Navy
Okay.
strength and
Yeah, I was
classic
gonna ask
and
if yours
classic
was-
strength because we didn't want the alcohol to overpower the kind of just the balance of botanicals that we present in this gin. So in addition to having the juniper backbone, which is what makes gin,
Mm-hmm.
we wanted something that had some citrus, some floral, and some spice. So we do an 8 botanical recipe for this. We use lemon peel for the citrus component.
Yeah.
We use hibiscus and lavender for the floral component.
Okay.
And then we use cardamom pods for a little bit of the spice component. We also use coriander, angelic root, and bay leaves in addition to juniper. And the way this is basically a New World style.
Yeah.
And the way we do this is rather than doing a traditional dry format, we're using a gin basket
Got
and
it.
you're basically infusing through the vapor path.
Okay.
We
Nice.
do a
Okay.
direct maceration, so we cook all the botanicals in the still,
Okay.
just like we make the lime. We're basically limes go in, everything spins and cooks together. We have really nice Bain Marie stills which distribute heat very evenly across the kettle.
Got it.
We also have agitators in all of our stills, which they're basically like boat propellers if you're not
Yeah.
familiar.
Yeah, yeah.
And they keep everything spinning, so nothing's sticking to the
Exactly.
walls. and
Nothing's
keeps
burning.
hot,
Scorching,
Nothing-
no
yeah.
scorching.
Yeah, and the reason why, you know, we did probably close to 2 years of different trials, a lot of R&D. You know, as Josh mentioned earlier, we're both gin drinkers
Got
and
it.
really particular. So we took some of our favorite gins. We found what we liked in them, kind of built off of that, but wanted ours to be a little bit different.
Yeah.
And we sought after making, you know, a full body gin with a lot of different flavors that you get, but still having juniper as kind of the backbone of it. But, you know, even being 100 proof, it's that full body really makes it palatable and drinkable and great with just tonic. And there's a lot going on in it, but we used to distill different botanicals separately.
Okay.
And then would blend them and see what
Yeah.
flavors work together, and then we'd start distilling them together. And what we found actually was we age our gin a month.
Okay.
And we put them in stainless steel tanks and let it really sit. And not only do you get those flavors blending really nicely together when
Yeah.
you do a direct maceration, but when you age them for a month, they even kind of blend even better
Yeah.
and give it that time. And yeah, so this was kind of our baby for a couple of years.
No,
Just-
it's the effort and work you put into it definitely shows. This is it's a little hotter, but the flavors are there. Normally
Yeah.
when there's like a super high proof spirit, it's just like get through it,
Yeah,
Or
no,
let's
we-
mix this, but this is enjoyable. Flavors are there, everything is popping,
Yeah.
and no, that's great. I never knew that story about. I knew like Navy strength was higher proof.
Yeah.
I didn't know that's why. So
That's
it
why.
has to be flammable.
Yep.
It has to be flammable in case it gets in the gunpowder, so the gunpowder still works.
Exactly.
That's awesome.
You want to
That's
be
so sick.
throwing cannons when you need
Right?
to if you're like in a naval warfare
That's-
situation.
Oh, that's a.
And
that's
so
a
the
great
label,
story.
the label, just for people who are listening, is a very detailed, just a very detailed drawing, very complex drawing
That's
of
awesome.
what we describe as the life of a sailor. So there's ships, there's
Now, who drew
um,
this?
people at the bottom of the ocean.
Yeah, no,
there's
it's-
all
So-
sorts of stuff in
Skeletons.
between.
Yeah, I did
treasure.
the original sketch of it,
You
and
did?
Josh and I did
Awesome.
the idea, and then I sent it to an illustrator to kind of help fine-tune it.
Yeah.
And then he did a pencil sketch and then sent it back to me, and I pretty much redid that in the computer
Uh-huh.
and made it into a vector image. So not only did it take about 2 years to come up with the recipe, but it
Wow.
also took about 2 years to do the label.
Yeah. No.
But it's definitely, people love it. People respond to it. But yeah, there's a whole battle happening on the top, and then sailors falling, and as they fall, they become skeletons. And then
Yeah.
there's a party happening on the bottom of the ocean with all these
There's an octopus
skeletons.
hanging out.
There's an octopus. There's
great.
a skeleton riding a fish. Yeah, we kind of call it our Where's Waldo label.
That is pretty
But it just tells the story of the history of gin, which again is why we decided to do a house of brands. Just so, with gin, you're really telling the story of gin and
Right.
relating to what gin is. So,
Definitely. Okay. Cool.
yeah.
That's great. Let's try the rye, and then of course save the absinthe for last.
Sure.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
Um,
so I'd be happy to pour that
Yeah. Cool.
for
So this is a
everybody
rye
here.
bourbon. Now that's I'm not gonna lie. Maybe I've had some rye bourbons.
You
and
probably,
don't know
yeah.
it. But I mean, because I know bourbon has to be 51% corn.
Exactly.
Rye has to be 51% rye to call it a rye whiskey. But
Yep.
now, okay, so it's a rye bourbon. So is it 50% corn or 51% corn and the rest rye?
So close. So
Okay, good.
So what makes bourbon is the one characteristic that you identified, which is corn is a dominant grain in the
Right.
mash bill. The second requirement to call bourbon is the use of brand new charred American oak barrels.
Right.
So yeah, so in this grain bill, we're using 5 different grains. So
Uh-huh.
we're using 55% corn. Then the next 35% is a blend of unmalted and malted rye.
Mm-hmm.
And then we use the last 10% is a blend of malted wheat and malted barley. So a
Very
really
cool.
nice balance of different grain flavors coming through. The way we make this is, so we do our standard mash. We keep all the grain in the fermentation through that process, so until it dries out. Then we do the first distillation with the grains in the still. So as we're separating out the low wines, we're getting some of those grain oils to actually come over
Right.
and give us additional depth of grain character.
Right.
The second distillation we do on it, we're focused on separating alcohols and focusing on the quality of the spirit and make sure the flavor works before it goes into barrel.
Cool.
So it's a double distillation process by nature. And then after distillation, we're proofing down and putting into 15-gallon new American oak medium char barrels for
Yeah.
a year.
Okay.
And so after a year, we then go back into our little barrel room. We pick a couple barrels that just feel like they're ready, and then we do our final proofing. So the final proofing on this, rather than try to, I think, follow the trend of high proof whiskey, we did a blind taste test, determined that rather than just hitting you in the face with a bunch of alcohol, we wanted to proof it down and make it balanced and enjoyable.
Right.
So this is proofed down to 82.5 in its final proof. So really nice caramel, kind of caramel apple nose. Then
Yeah,
you get
definitely.
you get a balance of the malted, unmalted, and wood in the mouthfeel, and then a long lingering kind of traditional whiskey finish, I would say.
Yeah, and we're still playing around with this one a little bit. So this was thrown in the barrel at 120 proof, but we have a couple of barrels in our room right now that when we put in at 110.
Yeah.
So we're playing around a lot just to really dial it in and perfect this. Is, you know, at what proof do we put it in the barrel? You know, just the grain.
Yeah.
The grain makeup we're pretty happy with, but still playing around a little bit. But this was our first one, and it's really smooth, and
that
the
is.
proof
That's
being
great.
82.5 makes it a good drinking whiskey, and a lot of that just came from blind taste testing.
I like that you
Dialing
kept
it
in some of the low, like you said, the low wines, because you really get more of that body.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, so the first distillation is separating basically all the alcohol from the fermentation. So
Right.
you're getting grain oil coming over.
Yeah.
But the low wines are distilled again.
Yeah.
So
Okay. So you burn them again. Okay.
Yeah.
Maybe,
So
I'm
that's-
sorry, I misheard you then.
Yeah, no, if I wasn't clear, I apologize. For
No,
that.
no,
But,
yeah,
the
no,
second
you're fine.
distillation,
I
we're
was caught
making
up
our
in the
heads and
nose.
tails cuts, conservative
Yeah.
cuts,
Yeah.
and then we're going into barrel. So in addition
Okay.
to experimenting with different proof that we're entering, we're also swapping our barrel program right now from 15s to 30s.
Okay.
So we're actually doubling the size of the cask that we age in.
Okay.
Because with whiskey, you want balance. Like in all spirits, you want balance.
Right.
But we want to be able to balance out like a rich grain flavor with the nice, vanilla oak flavor you get from the barrel. And we think moving to 30 under the same regimen that we're doing now will allow us to prolong the aging a little longer without overwooding, and that's also a part of it as well. So this is one of those things where we'll spend the rest of our lives like perfecting the bourbon.
Which is why we got
that's
into distilling.
Yeah.
You know, it's with both of us that it's the art form
Absolutely.
of perfecting it that
Yes.
we love so much.
Yeah.
You know, and we are oftentimes we have a little lab set up in the back, and like the whiskey, we're working on other flavors and other spirits that we may not distribute widely, but we may keep in here. But we're constantly playing
Very cool.
with what hasn't been done before. What can we, make ours? What can we invent a whole new category of spirits? And the bourbon is what we're playing with now, and it started with the gin. I mean, just playing around with that. But that's what we kind of pride ourselves on is constant experimentation.
Yeah.
And we set this place up to do that.
So okay, I gotta ask this question because it's kind of fun. Now, did you guys ever, any of you? I mean, maybe Shane, maybe you messed around with distillation in college. I mean, chemistry and whatnot. Did you play with that before you were here?
I had done a little bit of distillation with buddies.
Okay, so
but
moonshiners,
yeah. Well, yeah, it is funny because it's legal to buy a still in California, but you can't distill alcohol.
Exactly.
You buy it and you're like, oh, I just really like distilled water. It's
And it makes them essential oils.
cleaner, and essential oils or whatever. But
Water.
water, right? So yeah, I had done a little bit, and but yeah, Josh was doing a lot more experimentation than I was.
Okay. So you did. So you guys did do a little bit of distillation.
Yeah, so when and this is one of the frustrating parts about trying to start a distillery, especially when we basically just put our life savings into it. That's how, we're not backed by any major companies or anything, but to start a business like this, you need to know what you're doing before you can just justify buying really expensive stills and a warehouse lease that's 10 years long and stuff that can, just bankrupt you pretty quickly.
Yep.
And as much as I hate that we weren't fully compliant with at the home level, the way we were experimenting with home brewing. So I have a home brewing system.
Yeah.
We added a small 20-gallon still to the home brewing setup, and that was basically where the evolution of our product started, was just in the basement of my house in the city. And we tinkered for about a year before we pulled the trigger on the Cloverdale location back in 2013.
Yeah.
So we were tinkering with beverage alcohol before we decided to do it commercially.
So Josh lived with a couple of roommates in the city in Fort Mason, and so it was a great setup. We had a basement, there was a kitchen, all this stuff. So I remember a couple of times all of our friends would be on a Sunday be in the family room watching football, and Josh and I would be in the basement making beer and then taking, and moving that to the next level
Yep.
of distilling.
Yeah.
And it was kind of a mad science project. But that's
Yeah.
how we knew we loved it, and that this
Exactly.
is what we wanted to do.
No.
But we had
It's-
to test it on a small level
it's,
just to
you get
see.
obsessed a little bit. No, that's
You do.
That's
You
kinda-
do get obsessed.
I kind of started that as well. It's actually this is a funny story. So I started bar managing, and what hooked me on craft spirits was I managed the bars here at Dry Creek Kitchen in Hotel Hillsburg.
Yeah.
Then I'd meet with my sales rep, and he'd bring in something like I've never seen before. And I'm like, wait a second. So there's another whiskey out there besides like Maker's Mark and Jack Daniels
Right.
and stuff. Like, I mean, well, obviously there is, but I mean, he's like, no, this is
We
made.
get the point.
This is made.
Yeah,
this is
yeah.
made. This is made locally, you know. And I'm like, what? Wait, what? So this is a distillery where? And it was refined vodka. This is like
Yeah,
years
sure.
ago.
yeah, Central
Yeah.
Valley.
Yeah, exactly. And I was like, wait, really? So I started getting hooked, and of course I had to design the beverage program. So I started making all the cocktails, and I was like, you know what? I want to make my own vodka. You know. So I dove in head first, like bought a still, started playing in my backyard.
Yep.
I'd wake up because I was bartending, so I was working nights. So I'd wake up at like 6 a.m, fire the still up, and then like it would be in the low wines, and I'm like, shit, I'm running late for work, you know, like all day distilling, and I was making a lot of brandy. Nothing really turned out too good. I mean, it's still
nothing really
aging
is
though.
when you
That's
first
the
start.
excuse. It's just
But-
Yeah.
it's sitting on some it's sitting in a little 5-gallon barrel somewhere. You know?
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
it's I mean, you know, you're in wine
We made
country.
a lot of crap in the beginning.
Yeah, but then I actually, you know, wrote a business plan, and I wanted to start a distillery here in Hillsburg. And I was looking at places. I met with the city and everything, and I
Yeah.
was like, I was going to be. This is probably 5-6 years ago, and I was like looking at places where I could set it up. And the one place I got a tour, I met with the guy, and I just had to raise like, you know, $300,000. You know, I just had to meet some investors.
Right, piece of cake, dude.
So exactly, it's cake. It's cake, just kidding, you know. So, but the place where I was going to go was actually where Alley 6 is now.
Really?
Yeah,
On North Grove?
Yeah, definitely. So if you talk to
Nice.
Jason, he's like, oh
Yeah.
yeah. I was like, dude, okay, still here, tasting room here. This is gonna be perfect. And then he did it. He did it just like it. It's
Yeah.
perfect.
Oh, no.
Yeah, I got to get in there again, say hey to him. But
Yeah,
Yeah,
they're
we've
doing good
become-
stuff up there. We work with them.
but yeah,
We don't have any collaborations necessarily, but
Yeah.
we
We're
do
working on
like
it.
send customers back and forth, and we're definitely close and talk through the trials
Yeah.
and tribulations
Yeah.
of running a distillery with each
Yeah.
other, because you need someone to, you know, to lament with. about,
Right,
you know,
no.
what's going on, and
and that's one thing with the community as well. I've noticed. I mean, in business, there's always competition, right?
Mm-hmm.
But I've noticed there's way more camaraderie in
Yes.
craft distilleries than any other industry.
Well, I think especially up here,
Right.
there's so many people doing such cool things that, you know, we're
Cheers.
always interested in what each other's doing, and we're totally willing to share ideas. I mean, we had some girls from Spirit Works here the other day.
Yeah.
And you know, they loved our absinthe. We traded a bottle of absinthe for a bottle of their
Oh,
gin.
that's awesome.
You know, and then Jason and Crystal over there have become personal friends of ours.
Yeah.
So, you know, he'll bring over a bottle of rye, we give him a bottle of bourbon.
Right.
It's such a good camaraderie.
Yeah.
And of course, there's some competitiveness to it, but
Right.
in the best way. And I think
Yeah.
that's what makes us grow as a brand and as
Mm-hmm.
distillers is people are doing such good things that we feel like we have to keep up with that and do, you know, the next coolest thing. And
Yeah.
so it helps grow your business, but at the same time, we're able to really turn around and pat each other on the back and say, you know what, good for you, and
Yeah.
let's keep this going.
Absolutely. I try not to. I like I said, I was in Atlanta a couple weeks ago, and I did back-to-back podcasts. So I ran from one distillery and
Yeah.
hung out into the other one.
nice.
But I tried not to tell them I was going to another distillery. They're like, you going anywhere else? I'm like, no, not today. No, maybe. Because I don't want them
The
to
cat's
like,
out of the bag now, dude.
Yeah,
As
you
soon as you
know.
publish, you're done, dude.
I know, right? Oh God! But it was I didn't want them to be like, oh shit, they're going to ASW. Oh shoot,
Yeah.
I don't want. Oh, I shouldn't talk about this. I got to make sure maybe I
Yeah.
should talk shit about their whiskey. But the reality is,
Hopefully not.
but the reality is, none of them. They're like, oh my gosh, you got to go here. You got to go there. go by here. They're doing some cool stuff. He's super small and he's got a good story. Like everybody, it's really cool. It's fun to see that in the industry.
And I think too, for us, I think why we get along so well with so many of the other, Spirit Works, Griffo, Alley 6, it's a lot of the similar story. It's a lot of us are putting our life savings, our 401ks, and just have this idea of what we want to do, want to own a business, and it's kind of similar. You resonate with, their story resonates with us because it's like, that's exactly what we're going through. And so that's kind of the underlying bond between all of us.
In your guys' background, you were in finance, living in the city. Right?
Yeah, I was, yeah.
So what exactly were you doing? You're just like
after,
cubicle job or?
Yeah, after San Diego, I went and worked for a private wealth management company for a couple years. So that was, it's a fancy way of saying that I would talk to wealthy people about how to move money across accounts and get money to their children because they wanted to buy another house and stuff, all that fun stuff. Like definitely watching the 1% from a distance, I don't know. So I did that for a while. And then right around the time that we had the financial crisis, I left and went and worked for the Federal Reserve, which is the central bank of the United States.
Right.
So they have one of their locations is in San Francisco, which is the 12th district.
Okay.
And I started doing accounting for them there as my way in, and then worked my way up into management there for the National Cash Product Office, which is a division of the Federal Reserve that's responsible for how physical money moves through the economy. So basically the paper money that you have in your wallet or the coins you have, clanking around in your pockets, we as an organization just made sure that money was getting out to the market. We were taking money out of the market that wasn't fit for like dirty money or toward money.
Yeah.
And so I did that for a long. It was a cool gig. I don't regret or have any bad memories of that experience.
Yeah.
But it just wasn't, again, to Sarah's earlier point, it just wasn't entrepreneurial. It was a good corporate job, and I got to learn how to manage people, and I got to travel to a lot of cool towns, both domestically and internationally. And they paid for me to go to grad school, which I'm super appreciative of.
That is awesome, yeah.
But at the end, when you have that entrepreneurial burn, there's not a lot you can do to put out that fire.
Yeah.
As comfortable as the job, the benefits, the pay, the lifestyle is, you can go out to dinner 7 days a week if you want, and like life is really cushy. But, you're going to work every day, and it's not like you're in a box. Like you can grow only as much as someone above you allows you to, and you can only pivot to a certain amount, like to a certain distance from where you are. And it's just not like, I don't know, it just doesn't really mesh with, I think, how I want to remember my life of just like being out on the front lines, trying to do something innovative that I'm passionate about, and putting it all out there to see if we can, make something for ourselves.
Yeah, your product's lines, it's great. And it's like, what do they say? What's the entrepreneurial line? It's entrepreneurs will work 60 hours a week to avoid working 40.
That's definitely true. So this is the entire team that you see in front of, just to be clear.
Awesome. And we work for free. It's
we don't take a paycheck.
I haven't seen a paycheck in a while. What's up, bro?
The accounting system just isn't printing checks. I don't know what's going on.
No, and we adjusted our lifestyle to knowing that we weren't going to have those paychecks rolling in, and so we live up towards Mendocino now, and so we went from city living, apartment, restaurants, in spitting distance, coffee shops, the whole city life, and now we joke that we're country living, and we have just land and wouldn't trade it for the world. It's just so much more fulfilling, even though we do have a house in the country. We pretty much live here at our distillery. We, in fact, just got a washer and dryer so that we can do.
We have the whole Google model going on where we have laundry services,
here.
we do food.
We just need some napping pods.
We joke that we need to get a futon up in our office because we spend enough time here that
Get some Nerf guns around here.
We have
a golf cart.
We do have a golf cart.
See, that's pretty cutting edge.
That is. That's pretty great.
But we spend more than 60%.
Every waking moment here. Yeah. It's just, as long as it takes for us to get where we want to be in life, we're just going to keep hustling and keep working at it.
And we don't, Shane and I were talking about this the other day. It's like you kind of have the fear of burning out when you spend every waking moment and sleeping moment. All I dream about is the distillery.
Oh, yeah.
But when you're kind of riding this roller coaster of ups and downs, it stays entertaining, and you still have that like thirst and drive that you don't have time to get burnt out. You can't get burnt out because it's your baby, it's your life, you know, and in the best imaginable way. Yeah. Not to say though that we have to encourage each other to take a day off to, you know, kind of do other things.
Oh yeah, no, you need mental health days.
Yeah, exactly.
You gotta, yeah. So okay, well let's rock and roll. Let's taste the absinthe next.
Sure.
Yeah.
Let's dive into
Put
it.
some ice in it first.
So, absinthe is a Swiss-born, Parisian popularized, herbaceous, high-proof spirit made with
Sounds good.
anise, fennel, and wormwood are the primary ingredients traditionally used in absinthe. So in our recipe, we actually have 11. So in addition to those 3, 8 more. And as I pour, I'll talk through what those 8 are. So I'm just getting some ice in the glass for everybody because you do want, I mean, even though we do have people in our tasting room consistently try it at 120, we like to allow the ice to open up the botanicals, so basically force botanicals out of solution.
Okay.
Adds more aroma and character to the glass. So I'm pouring everybody a sample now. So this is Fellows and Foragers. It's, in addition to absinthe, fennel, wormwood, we use star anise, coriander, ginger root, lemon peel. So we do a direct maceration of all those botanicals in our still. And then after distillation, where the color comes from, so it has, I'll put it up to the camera just in case we still have camera.
Yeah, we do.
So
It's
it almost has I would say a tea color to it, so like a light brown to green-ish color, and that's the natural infusion of green herbs that we do after we distill it. So we soak the absinthe after distillation in tarragon, peppermint, eucalyptus leaves, lemongrass, and more aniseed. And so, which is a traditional method for absinthe.
Yeah.
So absinthe,
How to
you're
color it,
exactly. You're distilling one set of botanicals and you're infusing post-distillation a second set. And so what happens with the coloring though is with chlorophyll, which is the coloring agent in plants, is where the green comes from, it's highly sensitive to UV and oxidation. And so we, you know, rather than trying to fight like a color battle and make it an artificial green, we just tell people that, you know, when like our product goes into a stainless steel tank, even if it's sealed, it'll oxidize almost immediately and lose its natural green color. But that's basically the stance that we've taken is no artificial additions to any product that we make. And so I'd rather tell that story than say, wow, look how bright and green it is, you know what I mean?
No,
But in terms of balance, so what we wanted was something that has this anise dominant, but also have some grassy and herbaceous character to it, which is pretty traditional in how absinthe is viewed from a kind of a cultural perspective. And so hopefully you pick up some of those flavors when you're going through and tasting.
And you can
So
see the lutein
Yeah.
again, you know, as it becomes kind of
cloudiness.
cloudy. Yeah.
No, that's awesome.
But you
That is
do, you
great.
know-
It's a pain in the ass to make. So
It's a total
you
pain
know,
in the ass.
enjoy it.
Everything
Oh my
we've
gosh.
made, primarily the absinthe and the lime, it's like we took the hardest route imaginable.
Yeah.
And it pays off in the end, but you know, when we have people come to the tasting room and it's like, yeah, we hand press 160 pounds of limes.
Yeah.
We literally hand press 160 pounds of limes. You know, it's a great workout, but same with the absinthe. But when you get a good product and it tastes good and it sells well and people love it, you do what you got to do.
No, this is great absinthe. This is fantastic.
Thank you.
Yeah, kind of like our gin, we wanted to make it well-rounded. So you
Yeah.
get a little bit of the ginger, you get the dried lemon peel and lemongrass.
Yeah.
You get a lot of flavors.
And
in
what's
that.
the spirit base? Is it?
It's our Armont vodka,
Okay,
which is
yeah.
a corn-based
Oh,
vodka.
okay.
We do use corn. It's non-GMO. It's organic
Yep.
Right.
corn, and we do that because corn does add a little bit of a sweetness and smoothness to it. That you don't have the alcoholic burn to
Yeah.
interfere with all the other flavors
Yeah.
and botanicals you're adding to it.
I mean,
So-
traditionally, it's brandy, but I think.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
But I mean, this is.
But honestly, so the same goes for the lime and the gin. Is we wanted to create basically a white canvas, and then we control all the flavors through all of our natural adds that we do. So
Right.
like for the gin, you know, it's the juniper. We don't want the base spirit to influence interfere what we're trying to do by adding the different botanical profiles we're doing in each of these.
Right.
And I just found that corn with the right yeast distills really neutrally and gives us a really good foundation for everything else.
Yeah. No, that's.
And just from a production perspective too, you got to think of like, you know, bringing grapes into the facility in addition to grains, and having like a gluten-free statement on our vodka, which means that we have to manage dust contamination or any gluten contamination in the air. It just works out for the workflow too, and that's probably you know part of the honest truth as well.
Absolutely.
And that's why we started with a vodka, knowing that we were going to use it as the base of our other spirits.
Yeah.
Is, you know, and vodka's a saturated market, but we wanted to do it. If we were going to do it, we wanted to do it right.
Yeah.
And really spend a lot of time on vodka.
Yeah.
And then, you know, we still sell it, but we did it as the base of.
And so the development of this recipe came the same way as we talked through the gin. So this is basically me in 2017 in the lab doing just bench trial after bench trial after bench trial and trying to get the aromatics on the nose and the finish.
And we did a lot of blind taste testing.
And the palate to all work together. So that's like sort of the criteria that we set out is to make all those work together. And then have some of the historical artifacts presented, present in the spirit, as well as something that brings a little bit of uniqueness. So some of the herbs that we use are less unique in traditional absinthe, I would say.
Cool. Now, let's, this is something I've been wanting to do. Let's get rid of all the myths and legends with absinthe. Because, oh my gosh, I'm hallucinating so bad.
Do I look like a fraud to you?
I know, right?
Because,
No, exactly.
Yeah, if I don't, it's not working.
So, okay.
We get a lot of people in here, and
I
the
know.
first question that they ask me is absinthe even legal? And yes, it's
been legal since what, 98?
2006, 2007?
Oh, 2006.
Yeah, so actually, and that's fairly recently in the
I
grand
know the
scheme of things.
import laws changed in like 99.
Right,
So
yeah.
it was like, yeah, you could import it. And, but okay, so let's go continue. So absinthe contains various botanicals.
Right.
Wormwood, right?
Being one of them.
Being one of them, the predominant like ingredient for the most part, right?
Anise and fennel,
Anise
more
and fennel.
dominant.
Okay.
So the TTB, which is our federal
Yeah.
governing body for distilled spirits manufacturing, actually has some pretty clear rules about the
Yeah.
use of wormwood, which dictates the recipe.
Yeah.
So almost by definition of the rules that the TTB sets forth limits how much wormwood we could use. So where the urban, well, maybe there's, you know, a lot of these stories probably have a little bit of truth to them. So like Van Gogh cutting his ear off,
Right.
or like Hemingway just going just crazy off absinthe. You know, in a less regulated environment, that could have been true. In today's world, now that we have modern science catching up with a lot of the urban legends of absinthe,
Right.
there's only one ingredient, which you mentioned, wormwood, that's somewhat restricted by the FDA and how much you can use. And so when we develop this recipe, so anytime you develop a recipe that's flavored, you actually send it to
Right.
the TTB for lab analysis, or at least you send the recipe.
Oh, wow.
In our
Okay.
case, we actually send bottles to them for lab analysis.
Okay.
And what they're testing for is a compound that's present in wormwood, which is called thujone.
Yeah, thujone.
So thujone, if not managed correctly, is a intense liver toxin and can cause disorientation. Like
Yeah.
just if your body gets poisoned by anything else,
Right.
your body starts to shut down. You lose like your orientation, your motor skills, and so that's where I think some of the legend ties in. So like in an unregulated environment, if you're using very heavy wormwood under high proof extraction methods,
Yeah.
and you're extracting a lot of thujone character and then you're giving it to people, you can aid in addition to getting them drunk, shutting
Yeah.
down their body through toxins. And it's like a double disorientation, right? Because the alcohol is somewhat disorienting on its own right. And then you add this second compound
Yeah.
that's affecting. But yeah, so all absinthes that are manufactured in the United States today have to have a thujone content of less than 10 parts per million, which is basically non-traceable by most standards.
Right.
And so, yeah, so when anyone that you buy in the United States will have complied with that to call it absinthe, and we do the same thing. We have a non-traceable amount of thujone in our recipe. And so that's why that's where like the modern science caught up with the legend. Is once the FDA set out some regulations on how to control what could have been the issue for people in the past. It's a completely safe spirit to consume, assuming that you just like the flavor profile.
Absolutely.
So it's anise dominant.
Yeah.
It's got some of those other herbaceous characters, the fennel, the lemongrass, the tarragon, etc.
Yeah. My understanding is that, like, you know, absinthe. There was a big absinthe ban, right? Back in the day, was it late 1800s? The absinthe ban in Europe, and then there was, like, I guess, moonshiners making like other absinthe, but they weren't coloring it naturally, like you color with the herbs, and they were coloring it with like copper sulfite, and so you were slowly poisoning yourself. So people were having like intense, you know, hallucinations because they're just consuming some chemicals.
Yeah, and a lot of consumers of absinthe, you know, they saw, especially in Europe during its heyday, that a lot of those absinthe consumers were ending up in like mental hospitals, and a lot of that was because of the food coloring.
Yeah.
And you know, there's still food coloring added to some absinthes, but you know, they were very bright, vivacious greens.
Yeah.
And that wasn't natural food coloring, and it just led to some mental instability.
There you go.
And sugar cubes too. They now know that sometimes the sugar cubes were laced with other things. So absinthe fountain, when you drip the water over the sugar cube into the absinthe, a lot of times sugar cubes were laced with other things. So yeah, absinthe has an interesting history.
So I mean, it's just like gin. Gin went through the gin craze in England, and that was basically like trying to limit the production, goes into the illicit marketplace. They start using heads components as the dominant alcohol profile, passing them out to the public, and people get just blasted on it.
Yeah.
Not the good one.
Not
there
the
you
good
go.
one.
Well, you heard it here, folks. You heard it here first. Absinthe does not make you hallucinate. Although
maybe placebo effect. I don't know. It could be some good social experiment.
I had a buddy who used to tell me, he's like, whenever I drink absinthe, like a long night of like drinking, you know, that style of spirit, like aquavit and stuff too, I think is kind of like in the same category maybe.
Is that Caroline?
Yeah. And he's like, I have the most lucid dreams, and I'm like, that's actually something I'm not afraid of. That's awesome.
Yeah.
I don't know.
People always say that when they drink absinthe, it's a little bit of a different drunk, which I don't know what that means exactly.
It's because it's 120
I was
proof.
going to say, and that's always my first response is, well, it's also 120 proof, so it's probably a quicker drunk.
Okay.
Nothing,
well, here's a good question. Okay, as distillers, do you guys believe that there are different types of drunk? Different types of alcohol?
I do.
Yeah, I definitely do. Like, especially across beverage alcohol, there's, I would say, very different types of of drunks, and then very different types of hangovers.
Yeah. Okay.
So, like, you know, beer for me, just I slow down in. It's a very slow, very gut-full kind of drunk.
Yeah.
Not that I don't like doing it. I mean, I drink beer. It's part of my portfolio of,
absolutely,
you know, of libations that I partake in all the time. But
part of your portfolio of libations. I love that.
How do you use smaller words, man? I don't know what you're talking about.
Okay, sorry. It's one of them drinks I get drunk with.
There you go.
I love that, though.
I love my beer.
And wine's like, you know, I also really enjoy. I mean, I love wine. My parents have a small wine brand, and so when I grew up here, I was somewhat exposed to that, and I still have a lot of passion for wine as well. Right. And, you know, wine drunk for me is a little bit more light, a little bit more energy, I think, because there's some residual sugar that's there, and that sugar rush kind of helps.
Hurts
with the
you
alcohol.
the next day, though.
And it burns me the next day.
Yeah.
It's got to be like the mood that you're in when you're starting to drink as well, right?
True. Yeah, definitely. Emotion
it's a hard thing to
involved.
control, like to do a lab-based controlled experiment on, but.
Yeah.
You know, this is just anecdotal hearsay.
But we practice often.
We do.
Yeah.
A lot of,
No.
And then booze, booze is
Dry
great
months
because
are impossible here.
it doesn't weigh you down. Like, just if you think of just the concentration of volume,
absolutely,
you can stay light on your feet. I particularly like absinthe again because I think the proof and the drinkability at the proof it's at makes it dangerous and also nice because you're not like you don't have to. You know, go, pee 10 times before you're hammered.
No,
The important things about it.
That's right. Well, you got to do the bathroom
shit.
Oh my God. Every cocktail, you're taking a bath.
Yeah, exactly. No, I mean, it's just funny. I've been behind the bar for so long. It's people like, oh God, if I have some tequila right now, I'm taking my top off, you know? And it's like,
Like,
It's
well,
like-
here you go, line them up.
Tequila shot coming up.
exactly.
We'll
Yeah.
start making
I feel
tequila
like,
if
I feel
that's.
like tequila has the best reputation, the worst reputation
Yeah.
for the drunk that you get on tequila.
Right.
I actually am probably
Yeah.
my best at when I drink tequila.
Yeah.
Worst wine. But yeah, absinthe, I like drinking it too. And even though people always talk about how it's such a different
Yeah.
drunk, but for me, it's so flavorful and there's so much going on with it that you're not prone to just slam it. And like with ours, it has a little bit of a sweetness to it, but it's all natural, all
Yeah.
from the botanicals. So you don't get that hangover on
Yeah.
absinthe, with
Oh,
sugar
yeah,
and
no,
stuff.
it's-
So
it's
it's
clean.
just, you sip it and it's
Yeah.
great.
It's
and
digestive. I
fantastic
love it.
and Yeah,
It's definitely, like I said.
absinthe is my new jam.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, absinthe wasn't even on my radar prior to Josh and Sarah experimenting with it
Mm-hmm.
as well. Like I hate black licorice. I don't like the flavor at all. But
Right.
when they were experimenting with it, I kind of fell in love with it, and
Yeah.
just absinthe on the rocks is
Yeah.
delicious.
Great.
Yeah.
Yeah, people ask us all the time how to drink it. And bartenders obviously know how to use it. They're more familiar with it. But we do monthly cocktails here in the tasting room. The whole point of that is to showcase how you use the spirits in cocktails. And so we did a drink with the absinthe where it was muddled mint and fresh lemon juice. And, it was very drinkable. But I always tell people, I'm like, don't be
Yeah,
afraid
dude,
to
should we
just
just
have
take
some.
the rest of the day off?
Don't be afraid to have some on the rocks.
Sweet.
And that's my favorite way to drink it.
Yeah. I no, that's
Sorry.
so. Yeah, back to me messing around in my backyard.
Yeah.
I learned so much about absinthe. I was obsessed.
Really?
Yeah, I
Nice.
made my first. I did the same thing. Macerated it. I sourced all my herbs from like an organic farm in like Idaho or something.
Okay.
It's been a while, but I dug it. Yeah, like the whole process. It's very much an art form. You know,
Yeah.
I mean, all distilling is an art form, but absinthe, just the amount of different ingredients that are involved,
Yes.
and then the coloring.
Yep.
I was like, is this really gonna work? And it is pretty cool how it turns out.
Well, and we have another batch that we just did, and we did a little bit of a different process, and
Right.
it's a little bit darker, a little bit more color. So, like our bourbon, we're still playing around with not too much, but playing around with it a little bit, and it's amazing what just another run, a little bit more infusion
Right.
time, what a little bit, it just changes a lot, which makes it really fun. But
that's
yeah,
awesome.
we use about 10 times the amount of botanicals
Okay.
in our absinthe than we do in
Yeah.
our gin.
Yeah,
I mean,
it's
crazy.
it's insane the ratio. Like that's the thing. It's yeah, and then you bottle at higher proof too, so you don't get as much like end volume. You know.
So just to touch on why absinthe is traditionally such a high proof spirit is exactly the point that Sarah just touched on with the amount of basically botanicals and subsequently the oils that come over during distillation. They actually require more alcohol to keep them suspended.
Right.
So as soon as you start proofing down, you actually volatilize aroma and character into the atmosphere and it's gone.
Right.
So you could always go down in proof and lower the aroma profile. And sometimes you need to go up in proof to suspend it and keep
Right.
it. And so that's, I think, just an important distinction for
Hence-
why.
or you'd be bottling it as it's looshed. Like
Right.
that. You'd be bottling it cloudy.
Exactly.
But it's
That's
also
exactly
a fun
right.
experiment. Is once it looshes, you could add alcohol back to it, and it'll go back to clear.
Yeah.
Fun-
you can
fun
do all
experiment
sorts
to
of
try at
crazy
home,
stuff
folks.
with absinthe. Yeah. Yeah.
Do it with your kids. It's fun. Oh God, it's terrible. Well, I definitely enjoy this. Here, let's wrap this up. We're doing pretty good though. Okay, cool. Let's get one more. We'll end with a cheers.
Oh, here, I need a
Yeah,
little-
so if we can just plug our location one more time. So
Yeah.
So we're
Shout-outs,
at
plugs.
449 Allen Court. We're at the intersection of Grove and North Street. We share
down.
the parking lot with City
Yeah.
Hall. We have a tasting room, which we do tastings, cocktails, and tours.
Very cool.
From Thursday through Sunday, 12 to 6. So if you're in the Sonoma County area or you're visiting the Sonoma County area,
come this before.
please come talk
Yeah.
to us. You'll see one of the three here, Shane, Sarah, or I, because we're the three employees that make all this
Absolutely.
happen.
Shane must
And we're super happy to be part of
Yeah.
Life Distilled, and thank you so much for
Definitely.
considering us. dude.
Cheers, definitely. Thank
So,
you. Yeah,
on
when you're
that-
done tasting wine and doing all that,
Yeah.
come up here for spirits too. I mean,
right,
if
man.
you're coming up from the city, wine is here. Yeah, sure, it's cool. They're
Put a
kind of-
spacer. Put a spacer in the middle of your wine taste.
Exactly.
120
yeah,
proof space.
definitely. And thoughts. Yeah, come on by, drink some spirits. Absinthe, I highly recommend. But at the same time, everything is wonderful here. So, cheers. Thanks, guys.
Thank
Cheers.
you.
Thank you, man.
Definitely.
Appreciate it.
Definitely.